Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming. In the interest of keeping us to time today, we're going to start promptly. It is 8:30. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Victoria Connor, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the York County Bar Association and Foundation. We are so happy to see such a great turnout today for our Access to Justice Summit. And I want to right now especially welcome our elected officials and their designees and our legal community leaders who are here today. Of course, we have Judge Craig T. Trebokop. Thank you, Judge, for being here, our featured presenter. President Commissioner Susie Burns. Commissioner Doug Hogue, thank you. From our House of Representatives, Carol Hill Evans, or her designee, is here, but I don't. Thank you for coming. Our Prothonotary, Pam Lee. Representatives from the office of Senator Toomey, Representative Grove, Representative Klunk, Representative Saylor, our Pennsylvania Bar Association Pro Bono Coordinator, David Travaskis, he just happened to stand, and our Executive Director for Mid-Penn Legal Services, Rodia Thomas. All valued partners, and thank you so much for being here. It's a really important time. I also want to welcome all of our panelists. You can see their contact information in the program booklets that are in your folders. So we have from the York County Court Self-Help Center, Yorleni Ramigo, Access York Attorney Tally Van Vuren, from Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center, Mary Studzinski, from Mid-Penn Legal Services, Carrie Bowmaster, from the York County Bar Foundation, Janelle Black. You may have been greeted by Janelle at the desk, and we want to especially thank her for coordinating today's event. And from Contact Helpline, Dawn Squire. So I want to just take a moment to set the stage for today's event by highlighting the reasons why this summit was created back in 2015. By show of hands, how many of you here today were present for the first summit back in 2015? And how about 2017? We do this every other year. Okay, so the reason why we do this is exactly for the reason that you're showing, that we have such a tremendous turnover in the staffing who are serving the frontline people in our community. So for some of you, what you're going to hear today is going to be completely new, and for others, it will just be an update. But an important update because things have changed over the past 2 years. So what we all know, I believe, as service providers in this room, is that every day in York County, approximately 60,000 of our friends and neighbors wake up to the harsh reality of living in poverty. In recent years, despite our best efforts, we have continued to see a distressing rise in York County's poverty population and the corresponding growth in the demands on our network of social service agencies. Only 1 in 5 low-income people who experience a legal problem can get legal help from any source, no matter how urgent the issue. So in York, when we say more than 60,000 people qualify for civil legal aid, but we only have 4 full-time attorneys able to help them. So when you do the math, that's quite a workload. And we're talking about civil legal matters like child snatches, domestic violence, divorce, the loss of one's home. All of those threaten the well-being of families and cost our community money. And can you imagine facing any one of these challenges without hope of legal representation? So the lack of access to justice fuels community health issues, such as escalating mental health needs and domestic violence, disruption in schooling and increasing truancy rates due to frequent moves, an increasing need for sheltering, and the demand on our social services. You all get that. That's why you're here. And over the past several years, the community has really come together like we never have before in addressing these issues. In 2012, the York County Bar convened a legal services task force to really examine these issues. We engaged a national group to do a study for us about York County's. Also, how did I know that was going to happen? Jacob. Also about York County's stakeholders, community leaders and stakeholders. And the findings revealed, of course, that our entire county suffered from an inadequate legal aid safety net. And based on those recommendations and the task force, the impact study, the bar developed plans over the years to address these needs. And they involve 3 key areas: ensuring efficiency and quality services, increasing community awareness, and developing sustainable funding so that we can address these needs in a coordinated fashion. So the summit today that you're enjoying was created as a means of sharing information and gathering feedback from you as to the ways that we can collectively address the access to justice crisis in York County and help stabilize more families. And also, it's our goal to keep this momentum going. So at your tables, there are index cards. Please grab those and a pen. And as you listen to the presentations, jot down your questions because we will have Q&A at the end of all the presentations. So we're going to go through them all, and then we will have a group Q&A at the end. This discussion and any of the needs we identify are going to be used to help us develop new programming. And I will say to you that since 2015, since our first summit, we have developed many new programs, and Janelle Black will be talking about those. But before we get started with our official program, I also want to highlight that the timing of this summit is not accidental. You may know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness, and for those of you who are Italian, it's Italian American Heritage Month. But in the legal community, it's also, this week is also Pro Bono Week. But we do so much with the Pennsylvania Bar Association and in the Commonwealth that we consider October also Pro Bono Month. And the slogan there is "Every day is Pro Bono Day." So please join me in welcoming my dear friend, Attorney David Travascus, Pro Bono Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Bar Association, and First Assistant Public Defender, Katty Houtman, also a past president of the Bar Association. They are joining us here to recognize someone in this room who is a very, very special pro bono partner to all of us in accessing justice for the underserved in our community. Okay.
All right. Now, it is always exciting when we go around the state for Pro Bono Week, which is the last week of October. This is the 11th year that our partners, the American Bar Association, designated the last week of October to be Pro Bono Week. Interestingly enough, when they first did it, they hired a consultant from Philadelphia, an incredible champion of justice named Sharon Browning. And because of Sharon's work, Pennsylvania became by far the busiest site in terms of these pro bono activities. 11 years later, we do more than any other state to celebrate pro bono. I'd love to say that we do more than any other state in terms of helping access to justice, but we're working on that. And we're throwing some great parties. I want to do a shout out to my colleague, Radia Thomas, who heads not only the legal aid program that covers York County, Mid-Penn Legal Services, but they cover 17 other counties, going from Schuylkill County all the way up to Clearfield County, and think about the area. And they're having their 50th anniversary party tomorrow night up at the Hershey Lodge. So we're really excited for that. So a round of applause to Mid-Penn, Carrie Bowmaster, our wonderful person. But the neat thing about this is, and we have a proclamation from Governor Wolf. We just got our proclamation from the Senate. Senator Art Haywood pushed that through. And we're waiting on the House proclamation that announces how all of these great pro bono activities are happening and how important it is to have access to justice. I know we're one piece of this summit, but if you think about it, everything that everyone does here works to make our society more just, more fair, more decent for all of those. And so I'm really excited. We give an award out every year from the Pennsylvania Bar that honors a partner of ours. And in a room where there's a lot of lawyers, how many lawyers are in the room? Hands up. But there's a lot more non-lawyers in the room. It's exciting that we're using this occasion, and we do this annually to be the occasion where we honor a pro bono partner, a non-lawyer, who really helps us promote the justice that we have. And those of you who know York County well know that you guys have an incredible role to play in one of the most important things going on in our nation today, the whole issue of how we handle bringing immigrants into our nation and how we deal with the justice for them. And there is really one person in this room whose responsibility for that and her work promoting that deserves special recognition. I know she's going to blame a lot of other people for her award, but Mary Stadzinski, if you would come up, I think this is a surprise for her. And would everybody take out your program and just look at the back? This is just a brief history of the good work that Mary's done. And I don't want Mary to have to listen to all of this. Her nature is, and we're going to hopefully have her speak a little bit, and we're going to have some other things said. But please read that and see. If you don't know, one of the neat things about this summit is there are so many things going on in York County that we all don't know fully about and that we learned by sharing today. But if you don't know the good work that PERC is doing, you really need to know and you need to celebrate. And she is, I think, comfortably surprised by this, which is very exciting. She's going to be even more surprised when she sees the beautiful plaque she gets, because, and this is a mea culpa, I'm all over the state today, so this morning when I left my house at 5 o'clock from outside Philadelphia, I threw the plaque in the car. I threw the wrong plaque in the car. So Mary, we will be bringing the new plaque to you, but for purposes of the picture, it looks good enough. From where you're all staying, it looks right? But anyway, Mary, other than a bozo, this is it. You can hold that. But I don't know, we're going to have some more things to be said.
I'll give you a minute.
have to stand here and be embarrassed for a few more minutes.
I'll just take a minute. So I'm standing here today not only in my work as a public defender, which has great connection with the immigrant work, as we represent many people who have those issues. I'm also standing here today because I have the privilege of serving as president of the board at PERC currently, and in that capacity I've been working with Mary. PERC's mission states, it is a light in the darkness, a voice for the most vulnerable among us, and an advocate for those least able to access justice. And Mary, for the last 7 years that she's been executive director of PERC, has embodied that mission. Under her leadership, PERC's revenue has increased from around $500,000 to almost $1.3 million. Under her tenure, the Immigrant Survivors Project has grown from a 9-county region in South Pennsylvania to assisting survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking throughout the Commonwealth. Thanks to her foresight about the growing needs of the organization and her steadiness in applying for grant money and being able to present what a great job PERC has been doing, has been receiving that. The project now has an 8-person staff located in 3 offices, not just here in York, but also in Pittsburgh and Allentown, covering the majority of the state. PERC's community programs have continued to expand, including assistance and assisting lawful permanent residents in obtaining citizenship. Mary has forged alliances in the community. She has secured funding. She has expanded programs. She's overseen a move of the office, and she has been an inspiration and a great leader of the staff at PERC. And it's her dedication to the mission of serving those most vulnerable that make her so deserving of this award.
Okay, well, obviously I was surprised, so don't have any words prepared, but what I would say is thank you very much. Whoops, I'll just hold on to this, for the recognition. What I would say is that for many of you in this room who work in the community with people who are vulnerable and look for ways to help those individuals with the services that you provide, you know what the challenges are every day. And what I would say is that thank you so much for this reward, but really I was such an honor to have the opportunity to serve in this position as executive director, to grow the organization. It's really the staff at PERC, though, that have made the mission come alive. They're the individuals that meet with victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, people who are fleeing persecution, requesting asylum, people who are in prison and afraid and don't know what their next steps are. So it's really, a tribute to the staff of PERC over the years, and we certainly have a great staff right now that really this award is for. But thank you so much for the recognition, and I don't know how to put this back on.
We have a couple staffers here. Would they please stand up so we can applaud you too?
Jess, Ben.
Oh, hey, see you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stop until I bring the real one to you. Okay.
Okay, so things are already going awry today. It's all right. The banner, his plaque, I'm sure there'll be more. My designation of our first assistant public defender, Kathy Houtman. But please stay, everyone in the awards group, stay so that we can take photos after. So I just want to say that to maximize our time, after the next presentation, each of our panelists are going to be following each other in order of the program. So there'll be no further introductions. Reminder again, at your table there are index cards. The good news is you heard a lot about challenges this morning. We're going to talk about how we're going to be addressing them and plans that are already underway and things that we're already doing. So there is hope. There's great things going on in our community. Again, jot down your questions. At the end, we'll have Q&A. And I wanted to let you know that all of the segments are being videotaped. The videos and slides are going to be posted to our website at yorkbar.com. And the first segment featuring Judge Drew Wilcock is also going to be live streamed. So if you have to leave the room, please go behind where the camera is going to be. But the York Daily Record, thank you for coming out today and covering and helping us get this important information out to members of the public. And I want to introduce now Judge Craig Trebilcock, who will be sharing information about Community Action for Recovery and Diversion, the CARD initiative, that's the acronym. This is a coalition of stakeholders that has been formed over the past 18 months to coordinate better outcomes with the criminal justice and the medical and treatment communities in York County. Judge T's impressive bio is in your program, but most significant of all of his accomplishments, being a 30-year Army veteran, leading troops on the battlefield, achieving the rank of colonel, Valor Award recipient. Most significantly, he was involved in recruiting me to lead this role for the York County Bar. So forget all the rest. This is where we are today. And he's going to provide this overview of the CARD project, which is going to focus on the need for early intervention and systemic change to effectively address the underlying causes of criminal behavior. Last month, the York County Bar Foundation, our community's largest private funder of law-related programs, committed $40,000 in funding to move the CARD project forward. It's going to take much more than that. But this is the first active investment in a new approach to justice and public health. And we are working on plans to encourage others to join us, those whose interests align with ours. This is a pivotal moment for York County as we believe the long-term results of CARD will be transformational, and the benefits will ripple outward, from workforce development by removing barriers to employment, to breaking down silos among all of our agencies, to enable public programs and the court system to work more efficiently. Ultimately, more families will be stabilized, public safety will be improved, and millions of taxpayer dollars will be saved. So, Judge? One more order of housekeeping for all of our speakers. The clicker is here. Please don't walk off with it when your turn is over.
Thank you, Victoria. Distinguished guests, supporters of the Bar Association and Foundation, friends of the justice system, thank you very much for inviting me here this morning to share a few comments with you. On behalf of President Judge Adams, I'd like to make a few comments about the state of our court system and where we're going to be going in the future. The discussion is about the CARD system, but to discuss the CARD project, we have to back up a little bit and talk about how did we get to this point. For 20 years, York County has been a leader in the treatment court realm. Started by Judge Blackwell, driven forward by Judge Kennedy. We found through data over the past 20 years that treatment courts are a more effective, more economic way of delivering justice in the community. We have a large number of treatment courts in York. We've been a statewide leader in this regard. We have a veterans court, we have a DUI court, we have a drug court. Recognizing a special challenge with heroin and opioids, we set up a treatment court for that population. We have juvenile treatment courts, we have a mental health court. I may have forgotten one, but that gives you the general picture. Earlier this year, Judge Prendergast began one of the state's few family drug courts because we recognize the spillover from the criminal justice system into families. We have kids in the back seat of cars when their parents are passing out in the front seat using drugs. And those kids are going to grow up to become new problems in the community and the justice system unless we solve the issue as a family. So we recognize in the justice system and through these treatment, or sometimes we refer to them as wellness courts, that the old approach of you did something that broke the law, we're going to lock you in a room that has some brick or stone walls, and somehow you're going to come out a better person, doesn't work. That system was set up approximately 3,700 years ago in Mesopotamia. You're a bad person, we're going to lock you in a box, and when you come out, somehow you'll be a better person. Now, I am not by any means a lightweight when it comes to the enforcement of criminal justice. I am the last judge you want to be in front of if you hurt people, if you're dealing drugs for money, if you're making my community unsafe. You do not want to be in front of me at the time of sentencing. So this is not about kissing criminals on the cheek and saying, it's okay, honey, you're not going to be held accountable. In fact, the treatment courts are also called accountability courts. They are putting people through a greater level of treatment, accountability, responsibility, requiring them to get a job than the normal justice system does. How does that pan out in terms of results? Well, I'm a regular criminal court judge as well. I deal with everything from shoplifting up to murder one. And for the people who come through the regular court system, not just in my court, but statewide and nationwide, the success rate is measured by individuals not picking up a new charge within the next 3 years, that's how we measure it, is a 45% success rate. Now, unless you're playing baseball, frankly, that's pretty lousy, all right? In the treatment courts, the success rate is 80 to 90%. Twice as effective. It's also cheaper to use the treatment courts. For example, in my veterans court that I preside over, it costs $1 to treat a veteran and get them back paying taxes in the community back with their family, as opposed to paying $3 to incarcerate them for a year in the York County Prison. So back when I was at the War College, I was taught to question things, to not assume that the way we've always done things is the right way to do things. There's a great quote that I learned at the War College. It's from Mark Twain. It was that it's not the things you know for sure that are going to get you in trouble. It's the things you know for sure that ain't necessarily so. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty much true. It's the things that you assume are absolutely the ground truth that aren't true that will get you in trouble. And our ground truth forever has been, if you take people who have mental health issues, addiction issues, who have somehow become a problem in our society, and you lock them up, somehow that's going to solve our problem. They also taught me at the War College to ask this question, and then what? You always have to ask that question, because when we put somebody in jail, unless they did murder one, they're coming out someday. They're coming back out into our community. So I looked at all these factors and asked myself this question. We have such great success in the treatment courts. It's cheaper. We have such lousy results in the general criminal justice system. Why don't we take the principles that we do in the treatment courts and apply them across the entire criminal justice system? Seems like kind of an obvious question. And as we explored it further, the answer was, why not? We should be doing this. When you talk to any criminal judge or prosecutor, they will tell you that plus or minus 5%, I've talked to dozens of judges about this, that it's really about 20% of the people who come in front of your bench that are what the general public would refer to as hardened criminals. They're the people who have gone out and robbed a bank, beat somebody up, committed homicide, are out there using physical violence, making our communities unsafe. Those are the people why we built prisons. That's why we have state prisons. That's why we have the York County Prison. Incarceration has its place. It enables us to get those bad people off the street and so we can sleep safely at night. But those same judges will tell you, and I will tell you after 8 years on the criminal bench, that 80% of the people who come in front of my bench are people who have mental health issues. They have substance abuse issues. They have a combination of both. And they are not hardened criminals. They are people who need treatment to not continue to violate the law. And the treatment courts have recognized that and deal with it. The general court system has not been so great at that. Let me see if I can, do we have my slides loaded? Yes. Keep going the wrong direction. You never want to give a pointer to a judge. One more. All right, there we go. So what it indicates is the CARD project is not just a new program. It's not just the latest tweak on a pre-existing system. We're talking about a cultural shift here. And not a cultural shift within the Justice Center, not just a cultural shift within the judiciary. It's talking about a community cultural shift. We have significant public resources that are already in place to deal with these issues, but they haven't been well coordinated. And what I mean is, frankly, when the judges issue a decision, what happens next is very often invisible to us. I drop the gavel on someone and say, in the regular system, go off to treatment. But I don't know what happens then to that person until the next time they appear in my court because the treatment didn't work. It's almost tangential that the justice system and the public health system exist in parallel, but they don't frequently work closely together. The CARD system is to bring those two systems closer together. It recognizes that trying to fix these issues, we've been using the wrong tool. We've been using the justice system to try to fix what is a public health challenge. When you're using the wrong tool, you're not going to get a good result at the end. So for 40 years, 40 plus years, we've had this so-called war on drugs. And what we've used is more mandatory sentencing guidelines, more imprisonment, more coercion, and more imprisonment to deal with what's a public health issue. All right, let me see if this pops up. All right, I got to click every time for these little things to pop up. Sorry about that. I'll be clicking my heart away. Now, the slide's far across the room, but what it sums up is what we see coming into the court on this so-called iceberg analogy, the visible consequences of crime we see in the court. People are doing burglary, people are doing assaults, people are unemployed. We have people at children and youth, for the examples I mentioned, using drugs around their children. And it's easy to lump all those people together under the same label. These are criminals, we need to throw them away. But what we know in the justice system, prosecutors, judges, and defense counsel know, is that there's a lot of different drivers, which are the reasons why people are engaging in this conduct. And that's what's below the water. And if you don't analyze it, and if you don't talk to these people, and if you don't figure out your background, you're not going to know what those are. And if you don't address those drivers of their misconduct beneath the water, that's why they're going to come back again and again and again. I have the same families coming in front of my bench in regular criminal court again and again. I've sentenced in the same family a grandfather, the father, and the son to state prison for drug offenses. What are some of those issues? There is people being victims of sexual assault or physical abuse while they're children. That doesn't excuse conduct, but it explains that it needs to be addressed. Mental health issues. I have people all the time who are bipolar. They go off their medication and they commit an offense. Do they need jail time or do they need to be back on their medication? Now, we can continue to put these folks in jail, but the taxpayers have to pay the baggage for that. Would the taxpayers rather pay $33,000 a year to have somebody locked up in the York County Prison who's bipolar, or would they rather have them back on their medication at the cost of a prescription and be back with their family and working and contributing to the tax base? I think it's the latter, and I think that's smarter. We all recognize the challenge that the county has had, and the state and the nation, over the opioid issues, heroin and opioid. This slide shows that over the past 6 years, the average has been, since 2013 to the present, 93% of the drug deaths in our county have been heroin related. No jail cell has ever stopped an addict from getting out of jail and continuing to use. Only treatment works. And people don't just decide to use heroin and opioids because they're sitting around looking at a lava lamp and listening to Led Zeppelin, okay? And I think that's the image a lot of people have. These people who are using heroin are veterans who are injured during deployments. These are high school athletes who had a back injury or a knee injury and were put on Percocet prescription for 2 years by a doctor who wasn't thinking it through, and then they lost their insurance and couldn't afford the pills anymore. But now they're addicted to the pills, so they turned to street heroin. These are homemakers who had an injury. They were T-boned at an intersection, same situation, addicted to the pills by a prescription, and then they lose their coverage. So looking at all these factors, we went back to our justice system. That red bullseye shows you 10% of people we can bring into the treatment courts, where we dig down into these underlying drivers. They've been sexually assaulted, they have mental health issues, we can get them to treatment. That other 90%, which is represented by the blue, those people have the same issues, but we don't deal with it. They also have addiction, mental health issues. They're out there shoplifting to support their habit, but they may not meet the qualifications to come into the wellness court, or we may not have capacity. CARD is to help address those other 90%. Let's talk numbers for a second. We have about 4,500 to 5,500 new people, not cases, people coming into the justice system every year. So we can put 10% of them potentially into the treatment courts. That means, what, 3,500 to 4,000 people are not getting that high level of treatment or intervention that we can provide them. We don't have to get too wonky on this slide. What I call the zones of failure are basically our criminal justice system has certain steps that people have to go through before they get in front of Judge Trebilcock or some other criminal judge. And basically that amounts to, by going through these procedural steps from getting arrested, preliminary hearing, arraignments, applying to get into the treatment courts, 5 or 6 months pass. If you have a heroin addict who is not getting help for 5 or 6 months, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to die. So we saw those slides about York County drug deaths. That's partially attributable to those delays. Or they're going to pick up more charges during those 6 months, so we end up having to send them up to state prison. I know a lot of our representatives and our governor are concerned about the number of people being sent up to state prison, the number of people being kept on state parole, because it's expensive. The way to prevent that is not just looking at it on the back end in terms of, how can we get people off of parole once they've committed the offense. You have to look at the supply side end of issues as well. which is how do we prevent them from going to state prison in the first place? And this now gets into the basics of CARD. It's case deferral. Instead of intervening after 6 months when the person has picked up too many charges or they've dug such a deep hole for themselves that we can't help them, we're going to intervene right away. We're going to take them from the police car to a deferral center where they're going to be given the opportunity for help on day one, not 6 months later. The police and the magisterial district justices, the guys who are closest to the ground dealing with this every day, are absolutely frustrated by not being able to resolve issues with people who are chronically picked up for mental health issues. And they know that jail is not going to deal with those mental health issues. That we've all heard the stories about the person who is revived after ODing 2 or 3 times on the same day, and the EMT crew or the police play catch and release with that person. This will help intervene earlier and get those people into treatment. The veterans, the homemaker, the ex-high school or college athlete. These people are not worthless just because they have addiction issues. Addiction is a medical condition. We need to deal with it in a public health manner, not simply label people and throw them away. So what this slide indicates is they'll be given the opportunity to go into treatment. The DA is on board with this. Several of our major local police departments are on board with this. And what we're going to do is, if they will agree to go into treatment, get back on their medication, go into drug treatment, the DA's office is willing to either not bring charges, or if charges have to be brought because they have a prior record, if they will complete treatment, then the charges will be dropped. A different approach to the administration of justice, because no jail cell has ever cured anybody of mental health or substance abuse issues. Now, if they don't follow through with their treatment, they're going to get charged, and they're coming through the regular justice system. Accountability. This is not just feeling sorry for people. This is not being soft on crime. It's holding people accountable for their actions. It's injecting what it makes sense to solve a problem rather than using the wrong tool repeatedly. Oops. I'm not going to get too wonky on this. We're going to set up a wellness and deferral center. We found that with people who need treatment, whether it's mental health or substance abuse, that sometimes their issues are not, why they don't succeed, are not a criminal mindset or even a lack of will or willingness to deal with their particular issue. It can be other challenges in life. There's what I call the big 3 that cause people to fail. Lack of affordable, stable housing, lack of transportation to get them to all these appointments we set them up with and to go see their probation officer, and lack of financial stability. We're going to make people be accountable. We're going to make them get a job. We're going to help them rebuild their lives. If you provide those stable foundations, people can succeed, and we can stop the endless gerbil wheel of running people through the justice system at great expense to our taxpayers, our county, and our state. So the benefits of CARD are it's an evidence-based approach to reducing recidivism. It is to start knocking down the silos that have precluded coordination in the past. Let me give you one example, not picking on anybody except our own court system. We found out in our own court system that on the criminal side, we have a contract with certain providers to provide assistance and treatment to people in the court, and the family court division had their own contract with different providers, basically doubling our potential expense and cost by having 2 different contracts. We didn't talk to each other. We didn't know that we had 2 different contracts. And this exists all across the spectrum in York County. We have lots of great programs, but some of them are duplicative. And it's very often driven by funding streams. It's what I call the tyranny of the budget, right? Everybody needs to meet their requirements. They have to satisfy their funders. So they set up certain programs but the organization down the street may have the same exact program. We need to be coordinating more, not competing with each other. CARD will be a force multiplier with the coordination of the justice and public health system. It's weird to have a judge up here saying this, but I will measure success by our working ourselves out of a job in the justice system. We need to be deferring cases out of the criminal justice system to the public health system. That will be a marker of success. Our goal for CARD in the first year in 2020 is going to be deferring 10% of the cases out of the justice system. That's the goal. It may be higher, it may be lower, but that's going to be the goal. Early intervention, we know, saves lives and raises public safety. This is not just a guess. Judge Kennedy proved it with the Target 25 program with the DUI courts. In that zone of failure, that 6 months, that people were waiting to come into court, people who were chronically picking up DUIs picked up their second, third, and fourth DUI and were killing people. And were requiring us to put them in state prison. Judge Kennedy proved by early intervention and by putting people on ankle monitors, they stopped picking up their second, third, and fourth DUI, and we were able to treat them and make them successful. Finally, the CARD parameters. We're going to focus on the drivers of criminal conduct, not just look at the criminal conduct and react to it. We're going to be proactive, not reactive. It's not a replacement in the criminal justice system for punishing criminals who engage in violent behavior or who prey on others or who have no interest in reforming their antisocial behavior. I'll still be there waiting for those individuals. We'll take care of them. Don't worry about that. CARD is an accountability program that allows persons who have run afoul of the law to address their underlying social, public health, and trauma issues that are often a catalyst for criminal behavior. To put meat on the bones of that observation, I preside on the Heroin Opioid Wellness Court. 80% of the women who are in my Heroin Opioid Wellness Court have been sexually assaulted. 80%. Tell me there's no connection between that and the fact that they're heroin addicts, right? Those of you who are providers know what I'm talking about. And this is assaults before they became addicts, all right? They were assaulted, some of them as young as age 9. So now they have a warped sense of what proper relationships are. They have no self-esteem. They don't know where they belong in life. So when you have no self-esteem and you don't have proper guidance, you have a tendency to drift towards negative influences in your life. And these people are smoking marijuana at age 11, they're doing coke at age 14, and then they're using heroin by age 17. Not because they're bad people, because they're victims of sexual assault. That's what we're going to be addressing. And as with the treatment courts, those who take the opportunity to improve their situation through CARD will reap a short-term legal benefit by getting their charges dropped. But the important thing about CARD is they'll obtain long-term life benefits by getting reinstated to a stable life, stabilizing their families. Their kids will not be coming into juvenile court because they won't be in broken homes. That's the force multiplier that I'm talking about. We're going to save money, we're going to provide better services, and we're going to reduce the number of people that are being put into the justice system, which is the wrong tool. So I'll be sticking around afterwards to answer any questions, but I know I've stolen enough of the time already, so I'm going to end my comments at this point. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning. Excuse me, I'm super nervous. All right. My name is Jeleni Remigio. I am the manager of the Court Self-Help Center. With the Honorable Stephen Linebaugh's vision of equal access to justice, the Court Self-Help Center was established on October of 2013. Actually, today's our anniversary. Originally, it was run by our director, Megan Dietz, but the center quickly grew and required expansion in space and staff. We record visitors as incidents of service, which are cases we have assisted with at the center. By the end of 2014, we had 1,872 incidents of service. In 2018 alone, we had over 6,000 incidents of service. That number is expected to grow by at least 3% for 2019. Since the center opened, we have logged over 27,000 visits. And the constantly growing number of visitors led to the expansion into the Law Resource Center we know today. Currently, we have 5 staff members, including myself. Our mission, the York County Court Self-Help and Law Resource Center strives to provide meaningful access to justice for all pro se litigants. To achieve this goal, the center aims to facilitate a streamlined and less stressful understanding of court processes and procedures. The center offers information in various legal and community resources, all while adhering to a strict policy of not providing legal advice. So what does that mean? What is our purpose? Everyone has a right for an attorney, but not everyone is guaranteed one, especially in civil litigation. It is our purpose at the center to help bridge that gap and provide everybody an equal opportunity to navigate the court process. Research shows the number one reason people do not get involved with the courts is the financial burden of hiring an attorney. Here at the center, although we strongly encourage having an attorney, sometimes we understand that it's simply not an option. The resources provided are the stepping stones of self-representation that these individuals need to move forward. So what is the basic process of coming to the center? For those who do not know, we are located at the Judicial Center on the 4th floor. There are pink signs you follow that will show the way to our office. Walk-ins are welcome. We have hours posted on our website, and you can also schedule an appointment via our email. We don't screen for financial qualification. We try to help everyone. While most of our forms are in English, and we do have instructions in Spanish, and we have 3 of our staff members who speak Spanish. Once you come in, you must sign in every time and grab an intake form every time. Intake forms are record keeping for the center, and we also send the information to the GIS program at York College, which uses interns to create GIS maps, which demonstrates the center's growth and usage. There's also a disclaimer they must sign prior to the interview, acknowledging that we are not attorneys and they are held accountable for their own forms. So what do we do? Each visitor is interviewed by one of our staff to provide the visitor with instructions, process, and procedures relating to their case. Although we encourage each visitor to speak with an attorney prior to filing anything with the courts, we also try to provide resources and refer them to any relevant rules and statutes. We are a law library, so we do have law books, and also provide patrons access to Westlaw and Lexis Advance, which are helpful tools when doing legal research. The courts work hard to keep the forms updated at the center. We also try to simplify our forms by plain language. We also use color, breaking the process down into simple steps using simple instructions. We provide flow charts and simplify definitions for them. Our packets include checklists and calendars when necessary. For example, in a divorce, when a party has to wait a period of time before the next step. We also provide an ear to many visitors that come to the center who just simply feel stuck with nowhere to turn. To the outsider, the court can seem difficult and unsympathetic with their issues. So when they come to the center and we show empathy, we listen and make them feel like someone cares about their concerns by providing resources to different local agencies, showing them what we offer, and giving them some hope that they are not alone. With the help of Victoria Connor, CEO of the Bar Association, we have partnered with United Way to provide a Reading Ready corner at our center. This entertains young visitors and children while parents are helped by our staff. The Reading Ready corner gives children the opportunity to have a positive experience in the courthouse. We also encourage the children to take the books with them. Thanks to United Way, we successfully given away hundreds of books. Unfortunately, what the center cannot do is anything that would be considered legal advice, which includes interpreting court orders, giving legal advice, telling a person what to write or what to file, or what he or she should do, answering legal questions, helping fill out forms, and reading their forms for content. With that being said, if you feel that someone can benefit from our center, make sure they understand that we are not attorneys, and we may be able to help them. We may have forms, but nothing is guaranteed, and we may assist the other party. Therefore, it is always recommended to talk to an attorney prior to filing. We always tell them that the court will still hold them to the same standards as an attorney when representing themselves. By giving them resources, whether there's agencies that refer them to low cost or pro bono, or even suggesting if family members can help with their financial burden. It is always nice to have someone else brainstorm ideas that they had no knowledge or never considered doing. A meaningful quote by Robert Gray Jr. comes to mind. There is no justice as long as millions lack meaningful access to it. That being said, if we all work together to create a network of support, we can create a society that justice is created equal. We are constantly taking strides to achieve Judge Linebaugh's vision, and with the help of the courts and other agencies, the future looks bright. To my wonderful director and staff, thank you for all your hard work and dedication, and thank you all for coming.
A little short. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tally Van Buren, and I'm the staff attorney for YWCA Access York. The YWCA as a whole has a longer mission statement than this, but our main mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. And the way we do that is through our resources. We have tons of resources at the YWCA, including a 24-hour hotline. We have a 30-day shelter. We have counseling services, support groups, housing, education advocates, child advocates, medical advocates, human trafficking advocates, and of course the legal services that we're here to talk about today. It's important to mention that all of our services are confidential and free to domestic violence and sexual assault victims. In the legal department, when I say legal department, we are very small. You are looking at the staff attorney and my lovely paralegal right there. We are both full-time, but that's who we have as of now. Under the grant we currently have, we are only allowed to serve domestic violence victims. In doing so, we also have a poverty guideline. We look at the size of the family unit and the yearly income, and the people we serve have to be in the 235th percentile. Domestic violence. When you think of domestic violence, a lot of people think, automatically it's physical violence. Someone hitting someone else, someone kicking someone else. And that is included, but it can be sexual, it can be emotional, it can be verbal, it can be financial, it can be sexual. There's a lot of different varieties that are included in domestic violence, a lot of varieties of abuse. So a lot of people don't seek our help at first because they don't realize what they're experiencing is necessarily domestic violence. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of physical violence by an intimate partner. Just in the United States alone, U.S. women, 1 in 4 are victims of domestic violence, and 3 women in the United States every day are murdered because of domestic violence. 1 in 6 have survived attempted or completed sexual assaults. And 1 in 5 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year. With that being said, the legal services that we provide to the domestic violence victims include custody, divorce, protection from abuse orders, child support, spousal support, and any other matters that are related to domestic violence. So, for example, landlord-tenant. If you are kicked out of your apartment because of a noise complaint because your partner was physically abusive and it was loud, we might be able to help with that because it's related to domestic violence. If you need a quitclaim deed, we might be able to help with that as long as you know your abuser and you share the home together. We also, in the legal department, we not only help with legal services, but we make sure you get what you need. We meet you where you are. So, for example, we have a client right now, she couldn't afford dog food. So we got dog food donated to her. We helped her with support, spousal support, custody. We're helping with her divorce now, and we just put her and her children on the Christmas list so that way they will have presents for her and her family. How we take on the cases it really depends on the facts of the case. You have to qualify. We're grant funded. So it has to be domestic violence, and you have to be in that poverty guideline. With that being said, it also depends on the expectations of the client. If you come in and you say, I want sole custody of my children, and there's been no violence towards the child, and they're not willing to budge, it's hard to represent on that. It's hard to explain to them that their expectations are not realistic. We try our best, but the law is not always our friend, especially in the domestic violence community. It also depends on our caseload. So if I have 15 cases and I have one case that comes and who really needs me, if it's going to take away from my other 15 cases, I'm not going to take it. It's not fair to my other clients. It's first come, first served basis. With that being said, we do try our best to make sure people do get the help they need. So if this person really needs, they come, we can't take them, we make sure that we refer them to someone who can help them. We never want someone leaving, not having some sort of resource. We do have a case priority in our office. The first one is emergencies. So if the client is about to be homeless, if the defendant doesn't necessarily, there's a repeated occurrence of not listening to the law, ICCs, things like that. Next, we look at whether or not children are involved. Then we go to support, divorce, and immigration. And the reason it's in that order is because there are other resources for immigration and things like that. We want to make sure that we're really filling in the gaps of resources that aren't available. So we would like to help those first, those areas first, and then go to the others. How we get our clients is through a referral form. So you have to contact a YWCA advocate. That could be a legal advocate, that could be a child advocate, it doesn't matter. Just an advocate in general. They fill out a civil legal representation referral form. Say that 5 times fast. And then my handy dandy paralegal and I go through the intake process. The reason they have to go through that is because we have an ETO system. We have a lot of abusers that use the system and make it so their victims are not able to use our services. So we go in our system and make sure that they are not an abuser. We make sure we look at everything, their criminal history, if they've had any other cases, anything like that. But we do have a lot of abusers that use the system to help to make sure that their victims do not get help. We respond to all of the referrals within 48 business hours. And it's very important to note that if the client needs a PFA, you do not fill out a referral. They need to go to the PFA office first. The PFA office advocates will fill out a legal representation referral form. And it's important because a PFA needs to be done immediately. A lot of the judges want to see see the standard, that they're in immediate fear of imminent bodily harm. And if they're waiting a week and we're playing phone tag and I can't get a hold of them, it's not keeping the client safe. So YWCA also has a staff at the PFA office with legal advocates that do an intake with them. They can help them write the petition. They can accompany them to the ex parte hearing and final hearing, the preliminary hearings if there are any ICCs, and even the police station if it is a sexual assault and they need to report a rape or anything like that and they need some sort of support. We have advocates that will go with you. Like I said in the beginning, any part of the YWCA, we try to look at the person as a whole. We meet them where they are. So even in the legal department, we are not just a legal department, and we pride ourselves on that. If you need clothing, if you need food, I will get you those resources. If you need custody, I'm also here for that. We meet them where they are, and we try to empower them to take a hold of their lives and to be a productive member of society and basically to recover from all the trauma that they have experienced. This is our contact information, and we will do questions at the end. I thank you for your time.
Okay. Since Carrie's also short, I thought I would go ahead and lower it for both of us while we're at it. So anyway, good morning. I think I've already been introduced, but I'm Mary Struzinski, the Executive Director for the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center. Should put on my slide. I just went back. Thank you. If you hold it upside down, it seems like it's... Nope. Basic stuff, right? Okay. So PERC was founded in 1996. Some of you may know the story of the Golden Venture. The Golden Venture was a freighter that ran aground in 1993 filled with Chinese nationals fleeing persecution for the one-child policy, some of them still from the Tiananmen Square in 1989. And they ended up in the York County Prison. And it was during the last years of their prolonged detention at the York County Prison that the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center was formed to support access to justice. That's really hard to see. Sorry, I didn't know that we were going to be so far away from it. What the slide talks about is PERC's response to emergent issues over time. So we were founded in 1996, primarily to serve asylum seekers, and in 2010, we added the legal orientation program, which I'll get into in a second. We also, I'm sorry, it was 2006. 2010, there was a volunteer program that actually Judge Drew Bilcock was very involved in and started that became a program of PERC in 2010. It's now called the Immigrant Survivors Project. 2018, we launched the Community Defense Project. That was 17. 2018, we launched the Citizenship Project. And this year, we're launching, this month actually, as part of a statewide collaborative of nonprofit organizations, a universal representation project. So I'll go into all of that. But the point of this is that we really have focused on the needs of immigrants, vulnerable immigrants in our society throughout our tenure. Oops. So I'm going to go through the services we provide pretty quickly, but I want to just make a point. On the last slide, there's a way to get hold of us. Immigration law and immigration system can be very confusing. So my bottom line point is, don't hesitate to call us or email us. Honestly, emailing's a little bit better because our phones get pretty busy. But all of that contact information is on the last slide. So if at the end of this you're still not sure exactly who we serve and don't serve, just reach out. Because if we can't provide services, we'll refer you to someone who can. All of our services are free. So in immigration detention at the York County Prison and the Family Detention Center in Berks County, we provide direct representation, legal orientation services, and advocacy. The Legal Orientation Program is a program that provides education to individuals before their first hearing before the immigration court. You may or may not know that there are 3 immigration courts housed within the York County Prison campus. And it is civil detention, not criminal detention. So those are individuals waiting for their immigration hearing against the federal government who is trying to deport them. And so the purpose of their civil detention is to wait for their hearings. What we try to do with our legal orientation program and the first class that we offer is to help people understand how they end up in civil detention. What rights do they have? What rights do they not have? What are some areas of law that may be applicable to them? And is it even possible for them to stay with an existing law? So they go away from that first class hopefully knowing whether they can pursue a form of relief or whether or not they should accept removal. Okay, still. We also provide direct representation to individuals in detention at the York County Prison and the Family Detention Center. Two individuals, this is not their real names or real photos, but Sarah is an asylum seeker. She fled, her story is real. She fled Somalia after al-Shabaab tried to force her to become the fourth wife of a local leader. And her father was killed in the argument that ensued when the four armed men showed up at their house. Her and her mom were also injured. They were told that they would be back the next day to take her, so they fled that night. A lot of times people from countries in Africa will flee through Western Africa, across the ocean to South America, and travel up to the southern border. So this is an individual that we found in our general orientation, legal orientation class, who was seeking asylum at the border, didn't have a visa, and was detained, seeking asylum before an immigration judge. Daniel is a small business owner. This is also a true story. The only reason he came to ICE's attention was because he had a traffic ticket. He had a period of unlawful presence, and that was what made him removable. But under current administration policies, there are less priorities, so it's easier to pick someone up for things like a traffic ticket. He had a pending application, which under prior administrations, it was a temporary lawful status and would not have otherwise been picked up. But under current policies, he was picked up, put into detention. We were able to represent him in his bond hearing, have him released on bond. He's back with his family, his 2 young children. So we as a government had decided to detain someone who's a breadwinner and basically put that family in turmoil emotionally and financially. So we were very glad to be able to bond him out and allow him to pursue, he's still in removal proceedings with his hearing in Philadelphia. And his applications for status, which were preliminarily viewed as being approvable, are still pending. Immigrant Survivors Project is a program that, as mentioned earlier, is now statewide. We provide direct representation to all immigrant survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Our model of service delivery is to go into all of the communities that we serve and partner with domestic violence, sexual assault agencies. So we partner with the YWCA of York, YWCA Hanover here in York County. And we feel really important, a lot of what Tally was saying too, is the whole notion of a continuum of services. So we're looking to partner with the YWCA to be sure that those victims receive victim services from folks at the YWCA. We're providing the immigration legal services. We're also referring to staff at Mid-Penn if there's services that they can help with, and other individuals in the private bar who provide a lot of pro bono assistance for civil legal aid. So we're looking for these individuals to really try to help them with their spectrum of legal services. This little girl is not her real picture or her real name. She is one of 3 children. Her mom lives here in York County, victim of domestic violence, finally had the courage to step forward and ask for help. She was able to leave the abuser, the father of her children. So she and her 3 children now live in the county. She is applying for citizenship, just bought a home last year. So taking someone who is undocumented and a victim and allowing them to have status really is transformative. You may not know that there are many, many families that are considered mixed status families. So you know York County is a very diverse county, right? So we have folks from all over the world that live here. And many families are what they call mixed status families. So one could be a U.S. citizen, another person could be a legal permanent resident, you could have some undocumented members, all in one family unit. So just one impact of that is that when you detain and deport someone, you're impacting an entire family unit, many of whom can be U.S. citizens. That's really impossible to read. So I will basically not go into a lot of detail on this, but the point I want to make with this is that Under the current administration, we are fundamentally changing our entire immigration system through executive order or change in regulation without any input from Congress or the public. What impact does that have? One of the executive orders that was issued in January 2017 was called the Interior Enforcement Executive Order. And what it did was it rescinded all prior priorities memorandums that existed before that under President Obama, who we in the industry used to call a deporter-in-chief. So don't misunderstand. There was a lot of deportations that went on before our current administration. But by rescinding those priorities, it allowed Immigration and Customs Enforcement to not have to prioritize individuals who smuggled people into the country or people who were suspected of terrorism or committed serious crimes. So anyone who they had reason to believe could be removable, could be picked up, and not automatically, but reviewed to determine whether or not they were removable. So what's happened is that a lot of folks in the community who have been here for 10, 12 years, who did violate the law by overstaying a visa or entering without one, it's a civil violation. But they've been here for many years, may have a citizen spouse, citizen kids, own a business, pay their taxes, and those folks are now being picked up and put into prison and removed. So what's happening is that with more of ICE reaching into neighborhoods across the county, families are being torn apart. It's really hard to overstate the impact that has on children. When you take a parent away from children and they know that they don't have the opportunity to probably see that parent again unless they go to the country where their parent is, or they move back there, because their parents probably not going to be allowed back in the United States. It really has long-lasting impact on children. So I went through that one slide that you couldn't read really quickly. There's been a lot of changes in regulation. There's proposed regulation to change public benefits, SNAP, things like that immigrants are eligible for. There's changes to who's allowed to come into the country. There's changes to even things like accommodations for people when they apply for citizenship. So as a nation, we think we respect the American Disabilities Act, but apparently USCIS chooses to not provide some of those accommodations anymore and requires applicants to have a form basically proving that they should have a medical waiver before providing an accommodation for sight or hearing, things like that. Really creating additional obstacles across the spectrum in our immigration system. And I have so much good news right here. So. Unfortunately, it's the reality of the situation. So what has PERC done to respond to this? What we've done is really, as I back with that one step slide that was difficult to read, really trying to come up with programs that help different populations as they become vulnerable. So we provide legal screening clinics in the community, so free legal clinics. We provide increased classes in the prison, we call our legal orientation program. We try to refer as many people as possible to free legal representation if we cannot represent them ourselves. We have launched a citizenship program because unfortunately legal permanent residents are now vulnerable to removal. So we're trying to encourage as many people who are eligible to become citizens. And the last project that I mentioned that is launching this month is universal representation. Basically says, as was mentioned earlier, you may have the right to attorney, but not at government expense. So what we're trying to do is solve that problem by saying, let's work statewide to raise money to provide basically a public defender for immigrants in removal proceedings, focusing first on the York County Prison. Because the consequence of being removed means that you may never see your family again. You've left behind a family who's devastated emotionally and financially. So we think those consequences are pretty severe and merit having someone stand next to you, because 84% of the people that go to their first hearing aren't represented. It's very difficult to represent yourself through a complicated system. So we're just launching it. It's a pilot program. Next couple of years, we'll see how it goes, and looking to work together in the community to see if we can't raise money for that. You probably can't read that, I just realized. We'll go on. So what do we help with? So I'll just repeat. We help with people who are in detention at the York County Prison. If you are speaking to somebody who knows someone who's in detention, just call us, tell them to call us. We'll add them to a class. There's no special, magic wand that has to be raised. Just ask to have that person put on the list and we add them to a class. if you know of anybody who is you suspect to be a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking, please refer them to us. Give us a call. Any child immigrant that you suspect has any kind of concerns with their status, please give us a call. And anyone who's seeking to become a citizen, we would love to help them out. So again, I don't know if you can read this, but there's multiple ways to get hold of us. I put down the individual contacts for each of the programs that I mentioned. And really, info, at perklaw.org is a really simple, easy way to get hold of us. There's someone who looks through that email every single day, and they send the emails off to the people that are also on that sheet and different people in our organization to be sure that they get a response. So I'll be around for questions as part of the question and answer. So thank you.
Good morning. As Mary said, I am short, so I have to move this microphone down a little bit more. My name's Carrie Bowmaster. I serve as the York County Managing Attorney. I also serve as Deputy Director for Operations at MidPen. Can't hear me. I'll step this way. Thank you. I'm here to talk about MidPen. We often describe ourselves as the emergency room to legal services. As has been said, you're not entitled to an attorney in civil cases. So many times people come in and they're really upset because they have a civil issue going on. They're about to lose income, housing, their families, and they really need help. That's the gap we're trying to bridge. We also refer to all of the people you're hearing about today, and we all try to work together. We do have eligibility guidelines. We are at 125% of poverty. Oops, I forgot to sorry. 125% of the poverty guidelines for most cases. We can, in some instances, go higher, up to 200%. And we do representation in court for protection from abuse without regard to income. While we're talking today about York County, I think it's important to understand that MidPen covers 18 counties. This slide shows you the area that we cover. What we often find is just because somebody is in York County, that doesn't mean that their legal problem is just in York County. So we do cover a lot of our neighboring counties and are able to help others in other counties. What do? We educate, we negotiate, we litigate. What does that really mean? Well, we're out here, we do talks, we'll give speeches to those topics that you may want to talk about. Sometimes we're calling people and negotiating. And lastly, we're in court. We see the judges, we see everybody. And what areas do we cover? Consumer law is one of our areas, and I also realize now that the slide is probably not readable, but underneath it talks about the different topics that we do in consumer law, including debt collection, repossessions, bankruptcy, sheriff's sales, utility terminations. Housing law is one of our most requested areas. Again, list the different things we do, but I wanted to give you an example of a case where we were able to help a client. So client signed a lease end of May, walked through the home with the rental agent and pointed out some problems that needed to be fixed. Moved in June, the problems still weren't fixed. Called, was told the problems would be taken care of. Continued this pattern until August when they decided not to pay their rent because they were having very serious problems. Lights falling down, water seeping through the kitchen in the areas where they were trying to cook. The landlord then filed to evict them from the home. They came to MidPen and we were able to attend the hearing with them. Interestingly, the day before the hearing, our client's boyfriend's foot went through the hall in front of the bathroom to give you some idea of the kinds of issues that were going on in this home. Through our help, we were able to convince the judge that this home wasn't really livable for the amount of money they were to pay rent. And so the clients walked out of the hearing with a lower judgment and the ability to pay off that judgment. And then we negotiated with the agent and got them out of their one-year lease so that they could move to a nicer home that they had already located, but remain in good standing with the rental agency they were working with, because unfortunately, most of the homes in York are rented through rental agencies, and once you get a negative, it becomes harder and harder to find a home. Family law. It takes in a lot of areas, and it is also one of our most requested items. Custody is probably one of the highest areas, and I think everybody that's been up here pretty much has talked about dealing with custody in some sort. It's families, it's how it goes. I apologize, my mouth is dry today. We have a lot of different ways that we try to address custody. We have clinics, we have pro bono, working with the Bar Association to have private attorneys represent individuals without a charge. We do handle protection from abuse cases. We don't start them. So if somebody comes to us needing protection, we send them to the courthouse, to the PFA office. The PFA office directly referred people to us by giving them a sheet of paper, and then we handle those cases. Supportive benefits, things like unemployment compensation. When somebody stops, is unable to continue to work, we also handle public benefits, such as food stamps, assistance. Employment law, we do expungements. Coming up here in December, we will be doing a driver's license clinic where we will be helping people figure out the many different ways to get to restoring your driver's license. We have a contract where we do elder law cases. These are cases referred to us from the AAA. They can be in a variety of areas. We also have our low-income taxpayer clinic. This is the place where when your client gets the letter from the IRS that says they're taking their refund, they're holding it up, something's going on, they're being audited, those are all items that we may be able to help you with in the income tax clinic. We don't file taxes, but we do work with a VITA clinic here in York to do that. The next two slides just give you some information about our clientele, the types of cases we're doing. These are specific to York County. We also have some special projects. One of the ones that we have going here in York County is what we call our VOCA attorney. She is an attorney that handles protection from abuse and elder abuse cases. So you might wonder, like, what is an elder abuse case? Well, often what we see is it's somebody who gave a power of attorney, and now the power of attorney is spending the older person's funds for themselves. That we can get involved in. It may be the roofing guy walking around, knocking on the older person's door saying, hey, I'm in the area, can I get you a new roof? And then charges them double for the new roof. As I mentioned, we have community education. We are involved in the health fairs around here. We do education seminars. If you are part of an agency and you want us to come out and talk to your clients about specific topics, we're open to that and willing to come. We also have a variety of pamphlets, and we do provide those. They're on our website, and we have them in our office. As we've mentioned, we work with the York County Bar, and we do have volunteer attorneys who take on our cases. These would be oftentimes people who would not get representation because we don't have enough services, but we have community attorneys who are coming out and helping to represent. We also, with the bar, do expungement clinics, and I mentioned we have a driver's license clinic coming up. Expungement clinics are typically in the spring, so if you have a client who's looking to, fix their criminal issues, let us know. You can access our services by coming to our office or by calling. Our hours are 8:30 to 3:30 for walk-ins, 8:30 to 4:30 for calls. I have included all the contact information, not just for York, but for all the other offices, so that if you are dealing with somebody and you need to go to a different one. We also have a website, Facebook pages, and often you can find answers to questions regarding what can we do on our website. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Janelle Black, and I'm happy to be here today to speak with you on behalf of the York County Bar Association, the York County Bar Foundation. The Bar Association is a membership organization of over 500 attorneys. We are here to serve the needs of the lawyers, the judges, and also the public. The key component of our mission that brings us to events like today is helping to improve the way we provide legal services and education to the public. One thing I'm happy to get to share with you is a collaboration of the Bar Association. We've partnered with WellSpan Health to pilot a program where advanced medical directives, so documents like a healthcare power of attorney, are uploaded into their portal, and that allows that information to be available throughout WellSpan wherever the individual is receiving care. Our foundation was created in 1991 as the charitable arm of the association, and the foundation's mission is to promote the administration of justice, increase the access to justice, and promote public understanding and respect for the law and for the legal system. As you've heard earlier, the York County Bar Foundation is the largest private funder of law-related initiatives in York County. This includes law-related projects such as the Truancy Initiative, which we partner with United Way, as well as the York County's Drug, DUI, Mental Health, and Veterans Treatment Courts. There's a list of the other programs that we support in our annual report, which is in your materials at your seat. Some of the foundation programs to help our mission are programs such as Legal Lines, which is an educational video presentation hosted by a local attorney, Glenn Smith. It's on our website, it's on YouTube, it's on Community Access Television. We also do a mock trial competition, which exposes high school students to the law process. We host Law Day celebrations, which celebrate the nation's commitment to the rule of law. And we also have a Liberty Bell Award, which honors non-attorney volunteers who encourage commitment to the rule of law and legal system. We do have some partnerships or collaborative programs as well. One of these is the York County Alliance for Learning's Law Career Exploration Program, and we also provide administrative assistance to some local programs, Leave a Legacy and Estate Planning Council. So now that you've had an overview of the association and the foundation as a whole, I'm going to devote the rest of my time to discussing our civil legal services programs. This graph is here to illustrate the overwhelming need for legal aid in our community. And this is part of the reason why the bar strives to assist through our pro bono program. Now, you've likely seen the social media meme that not all heroes wear capes. In just a moment to recognize that our pro bono attorneys are our heroes. They provide their free legal services through our volunteer-driven efforts. We wouldn't be here to talk about pro bono without that. And to fully understand our pro bono program, we also have to take a minute to appreciate MidPenn. MidPenn works with us to place their overflow or conflict cases with our pro bono attorneys. We do also help by being a funder of MidPenn. The foundation helps to fund one of the 5 attorneys at MidPenn. Just to give you something to think about, of those 5 attorneys, they need to serve over 60,000 individuals that are living in poverty. So that gives you a better understanding of why our pro bono efforts are so important to the community. Our pro bono efforts are not limited just to assisting with direct case representation. Our volunteer attorneys also dedicate their time and service in a variety of ways: law clinics, supporting the Youth Court Alliance, expungement and record sealing clinics, our new driver's license restoration clinic. We also have an annual Wills for Heroes event where attorneys provide no-cost estate planning documents for veterans and first responders. So since it is Pro Bono Month, we just wanted to celebrate Pro Bono Month and take one more minute to recognize our volunteer attorneys for all that they do. This illustrates some of the types of legal services that are handled through our partnerships. New to this list is the driver's license restoration clinic, which you'll hear more about in a bit. But this initiative is a direct result of feedback and guidance from the community. So thanks to all of you, our community partners, as well. In fact, one of the reasons we like to do this program is to help you to be able to provide warm handoffs. So we know there's a lot of options, a lot of confusion as to where people should go, and we want to help to make that less confusing. So get them out of the gerbil wheel that the judge mentioned earlier. So if you are working with someone that you think would qualify for MidPenn, obviously they need to start there. You've already heard from Attorney Bowmaster. If an individual does not qualify for MidPenn, our pro bono program won't assist either, but we do have something called our Modest Means program. This may help. It has grown out of community summits like these, and it's designed to assist what is being called the ALICE population, and we recognize and acknowledge United Way's work to spotlight these individuals that are asset-limited, income-constrained, employed. So they're the population that may benefit from Modest Means, which can provide lower-cost legal assistance in the areas of family or criminal law matters. There is an application process, so anyone who is interested should contact the Bar Association. There's also a postcard in your materials that will highlight the Modest Means program. On the flip side of that is our Attorney Connection lawyer referral. This is not part of our legal services, legal aid component, but it's a lawyer referral service. It's available to anyone. They can contact us and we'll try to put them in touch with an attorney that's best able to assist. We also have our York Lawyers for the Arts, which is a collaboration with the Cultural Alliance of York County. This can partner attorneys with artists and art organizations who may need free or lower cost legal assistance specific to their work as a creative in the community. You've heard a lot already about our expungement clinic. We've hosted these for a number of years now. We host them typically twice a year since 2016. Our goal is really to help individuals with a criminal record overcome the barriers that are created in housing and getting a job and credit issues through their criminal history. These clinics really wouldn't happen without a great partnership. Here are some of our partners that have cooperated with us in the past. Speaking of partnerships, our driver's license restoration clinic is coming up in December. This also wouldn't be happening without our partners or our volunteer attorneys. And there is a flyer in your materials. If you know of anyone who think you want to share it with anyone who you think could benefit from this program, please have them get in touch with the Bar Association and we'll see what we can do. Also in your materials is this flyer. It's a flow chart of all the legal services, sort of a summary of what's being presented today. It's for you to take with you, keep with you. It's an updated version if you were here before. It's updated with some new information. It's a means to help individuals you're helping navigate the legal system so that they can get that warm handoff. Lastly, this is our home at the bar. We can't really accommodate walk-ins, so please have individuals call if you think they could benefit from our service. And on behalf of the Bar Association and Foundation, thank you for attending, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to improve access to justice.
So again, good morning. I come to you from a very winding road. I started out working with Fortune 50 companies in Washington, D.C., being an account executive, then becoming a military spouse after a military brat and living in over 27 different homes. Started a stained glass studio, and then when we moved to York, I started becoming a volunteer and an advocate in the school system with my children and other children. And then worked in an alternative ed school, the wonderful Crispus Attucks, and leadership and character development. And I share that with you to say that I'm a person who understands systems from beginning to end. And I found myself so incredibly frustrated being an advocate and a bridge maker, hopefully, within the York City system. When I would work with families, they would leave my office and I would just literally slam the phone down because it was so challenging to access the systems that families needed. So I then began a journey of restorative practices, and restorative practices is the emerging social science that improves and repairs relationships between people and communities. The purpose is to build healthy communities with citizens, not two, not four, but with citizens who are healthy and empowered. And so then I found myself with 211, and you guys know it as the first directory previously in its previous iteration, but Contact Helpline is the amazing organization that I serve. That's the regional provider for your 211 services and Contact Helpline services. And our mission is we provide that service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of the year, and mostly with volunteers who've been with Contact Helpline for over 25 years. People are so committed to this that we have a woman who moved to the Midwest and still gets on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning from her Midwest home to provide the services for Contact Helpline. So again, we've been doing this since 1970 with highly trained volunteers whose job is not to fix or to give advice, but whose job is to listen and empower. And so we're an accredited organization. We're there 24/7, and we do the 211 side of it, which is information and referral, as well as the helpline. And then the other element is we are determined to be a collaborative partner within the regions that we serve. And that's kind of tough in Pennsylvania sometimes, but to be a collaborative partner. So if you need data for a grant application or for something that you're doing, we're the people that can help you out. If you have a special project, we are the people that can help you out with a phone team and a phone bank. Our main phone bank is in Harrisburg, and then we have a satellite office in York. And so like Pennsylvania, they love the service. I'm overly transparent. Pennsylvania wants services. They don't like to fund them. So it's a statewide database that we all pour into, but it's 6 regional providers that offer that service of curating the data as well as providing the phone service. Probably not the most efficient way to do things, but you know what? We're not here to complain. We're here to find solutions. So we are a 10-county regional provider. But if you have a family member, or I should say and when you have a family member, if they're in another part of the state, let's say you have a grandma who is in Pittsburgh and you're looking to see what dementia services might be available, you call us and we're able to plug you into what information is there in Pittsburgh. Or you're incredibly frustrated and you just need a listening ear, then you're calling that 800 number, and we're there just to listen and to be that emotional support that you might need. Again, both phone calls are free and both phone calls are available at any point. So information and referral, we consider ourselves a gateway to the human services. It's a nationally recognized number, 211. It's free and accessible. Talk about empowerment. That's what we're all about. We're not there to do things for people. We're there to do things with people. And we offer a language line, again, that accessibility. And we're offering texting. The texting is only available, though, Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. Of course, you can always go online, and I'm getting there. What is the difference between us and Google? It's our detailed information. It's being able to share specifically what programs you might need. It's offering the eligibility factors, if there's fees, that contact information. But again, just that presence that if that's not quite the right fit for you, you know that you can call us back and we're there to help. So this is probably the least sexy thing that you will see in a long, long time. This is what our current database looks like. You can go online and start to access it. It's not exactly user-friendly and accessible, which is one of our mandates. And so through the amazing support of Michelle Havis's office in our York County Human Services Department, they made a huge commitment about 2 years ago. And it's really why I'm able to be standing here before you, is to fund to help fund my position so that we could get York County working better together. And through hundreds of volunteer hours, we were the pilot site. We are the pilot site, and you can go. Again, that's challenging to see, but I know that you'll have access to the slides. This is the pilot project that citizens from all over York County came together in focus group after focus group to work through how can we make this complicated data accessible to your case managers as well as your citizens who need just the full variety of community services to be an empowered, healthy citizen. And so in each of those 12 sections, and we start out with families, we've got the clothing, then we move on to disability services, food, health care, housing, employment and education, legal services, our mental health services, reentry, addictions, substance abuse issues, and services for veterans. When you click on those, it'll take you through a series of questions, and then you're able to access the information for the exact service. Again, call us if you need anything. That's always the skeleton that holds it all together is our phone specialist. But this starts to give a level of empowerment that our case managers and that our everyday citizen didn't normally have. They felt removed from the information. And so it's that collaboration with community. And again, overly transparent. But it wasn't until I started sending out emails that said, hey, this is a project that Michelle Havis's office is backing, that agencies started responding in a timely manner. So part of the message is we have to work together to get our agencies to offer the information, offer accurate information, and share with us when things change. And the more we can say that this may be the umbrella organization that services your little niche of the county, if we can all work together to make sure the information is accurate, the better off we'll all be. So when you find a service that you want, you're clicking on it, and then you're able to access all of the additional information that's there. Our updated service, if you are an agency that wants to do your job and help with data accuracy, you'll be able to email us in a much more efficient way. You'll be able to go on the listing and specifically change what you need to. I'll then get an email being able to review it, and then we can make it go online. But the service is so responsive. The Salvation Army is an amazing example of an agency that does it right. That you as an agency have the ability to turn it on and off your listing as you need to. You have the ability to say how many slots for a service you have available. We can track that down as referrals come in. And you also have the ability as an agency that you can become a partner subscriber, that if you are a case manager, you can have your own login and be able to take on the same role that our call specialists do, that you can be accessing your clients' information, seeing where they're referred to. And as the state and everybody else is getting on board, the next level is you'll be able to see if they've accessed the service, if it was effective, or if an additional referral is needed. And you'll have all of that real-time data that's HIPAA and FERPA compliant. So again, information and referral for our basic needs and resources. Everybody kind of understands that we're that basic need, but what the message I'm hoping you'll take away today is that we go beyond basic needs that you think of. Utility assistance, heating and fuel assistance, rental assistance, which is huge, food pantry, shelters, and clothing. And sometimes we kind of take the brunt of it because we're information referral. We're not a direct provider. But when we only have one agency in a county that's providing, let's say, rental assistance, and they're doing the best darn job they can, but they are maxed out, sometimes it's 211 that takes the heat. Well, what do you mean you don't have a service for rent? Well, I'm sorry. We're simply the conduit. And that's where forums like this are incredibly important, that we can be understanding where we're strong, but where we may have some weaknesses that we need to kind of pull together and find additional resources. And so, again, we understand that our slides are just a little bit of a challenge, but hopefully, again, the message that you're getting is we go beyond those basic needs to a much greater depth. I say we're everything from a Mom and Me book club and where your local dog park is to where your cardiovascular surgeon's office is. It is that full breadth of community services, as well as where's the local walking club. So we really want to stress that we're about an entire whole community and wellness. Legal issues, landlord-tenant concerns, custody issues, domestic violence, government benefits, and utility shutoff. And then the other wonderful thing, because we're an existing system, when emergencies happen, and they will, we are in place to be set up to, again, be a conduit, not be that direct service provider, but like when there is a flood, we are set up to start taking that information and then pushing it out to the service providers. Or if there's a flu epidemic, again, able to take that information and help people access the services that they need. So those special projects, we're very well positioned to handle them. In your packet, you have one of our postcards. And it has about the 211 services, but it also has about the listening line. That was absolutely the foundation for everything that we do. We say that we are not therapy and we are not advice. We are trained emotional listeners, and people can call twice a day. It's an anonymous call. They can call for 10 minutes, each call 2 times a day. And most people think of it as what the clients and communities need. But what I want to share with you is most of you are in pretty intense service provider positions. This is a great resource for your own staff. It's a very supportive and restorative practice tool for your own staff that is getting vicariously traumatized on a daily basis. And again, it's not therapy. We want to encourage people to get the services they need with that. But that ability to close a door, call an 800 number, and truly vent and know that you're heard and it's a human being and not a computer is incredibly invaluable and an amazing tool to offer your own staff. So people call for loneliness. We have frequent callers that are the elderly and homebound, individuals with mental health challenges, a lot of family issues, sexuality concerns. And we have suicidal clients as well. We're trained to address lethality and then get them transferred immediately over into crisis lines if needed. Here's our contact information. Again, 211, that's all you have to remember. And even on the 211 call, you can call and say, hey, get me that quirky chick Dawn, and they will plug you over there. Kelly Golick, our executive director, is amazing, and I've yet to witness a more profound collaborator in the community. So if you're an agency that's looking to collaborate and you need support services, she is definitely your professional to get in touch with. And I just thank you. I thank you for being an amazingly receptive audience today. And I'm leaving the clicker. I have a tendency to take things.
Actually, you can stay. You can stay. So now we're at the favorite portion of this exercise, and that is your questions and answers. So I'd like to have all the speakers come up behind me on the stage, and then in the center of the room, right behind Mary Studzinski, our award winner, is a microphone. So I would ask you to ask your question into that microphone one at a time, and I'll help moderate that portion. But now this is your forum for the burning questions. And again, all of you, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, this information will be provided. I know that there was concern about the slides. That's because they will be provided to you. And also, again, video segments. If you missed what someone said, each of these segments will be into their own short little session. So you can go by person and click on their segment and get to the questions that maybe you have. So are we ready for question and answers? I thank all of our speakers again. Please give them a round of applause. Okay, who will be our first person that has a question? Someone. Question for should be. How about that? Hello? Hello?
I have a question for Access York and Mid-Penn. So if, again, I work at the Public Defender's Office, but we get a lot of clients, who have other issues that are dealt with by other agencies. A lot of them deal with divorce and custody issues. I heard from both of you that you will represent people, particularly, well, for access, it would have to be domestic violence victims. We see that quite a bit. If we have clients that we need to refer to those questions, do you guys communicate? Do we refer them to Mid-Penn? Do we refer them to the YW? Do you communicate? Where do I send them?
It just depends on the poverty guideline because their poverty guideline is a little bit lower than ours. And furthermore, we do divorce and they don't. But they also,
Okay.
they're more in the court system with the PFA. But Carrie and I know each other. And if I can't take a case, I can send it to Carrie. And if Carrie can't, she's spousal support. She's like, we don't do that, but Tally can. So we'll refer back and forth.
The other thing that I would be a little bit concerned, you're in the public defender's office, so you're probably defending the person who's not the victim. So sending them to Access
Is
is
not
not
gonna
going to get them
work.
services.
Okay.
We do both ends of it. And as I said in the presentation, custody is the largest area that we get requests for. So we have basically 3 different type of programs where we're trying to address as much custody as possible. So somebody that calls Mid-Penn may not get an attorney, they may get a clinic, they may get a pro bono referral, but we're trying to address as many as possible. And then when nothing else helps, we refer them to the self-help center.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not a service provider, but I am a citizen of York County for a long, long time. And I've been a teacher, a coach, athletic director, and I've interacted with this community for a long, long time. My concern is to advocate for youth and our children. I admire each and every one of you and what you do, and I think your presentation has been amazing. However, everything I've heard is reactive. We do very little that's proactive. One example that I deal with, because I volunteer with juvenile probation with the youth aid panels for 15 years, a program that Judge Euler began, and it's an outstanding program. However, what I've found in those 15 years, and particularly in the last several years, is that our children, if you want to do something about opioids, that's not going to happen. Our children have so many ADD issues and medications thrown at them that we are creating drug addicts. I'm not sure that each and every parent and each and every educator and those who dispense drugs are really interested in the future of that child as opposed to the present of that child. Let's keep them under control. If you read from some of the top guys in the country regarding ADD and ADHD, they're going to tell you that Most of these kids should not be on a medication. That's just one example. Kids aren't born bad. We don't have bad citizens that are born. We have bad citizens that we create. We need to do a whole lot more, a better job in education, a better job as parents, and when the community begins to focus on that, we don't need reactive programs. People won't be beat. I went to an Access seminar about 12 years ago, just Access. It hasn't changed. We haven't done anything proactively. We've got entities like legal services and safety and that kind of stuff, but we aren't preventing.
If I may respond to that, at YWCA Access York, we actually do have programs for children specifically and for parents of children to prevent them from going into domestic violence situations. We also have education advocates that go to the schools and teach about what a healthy relationship looks like, and what, domestic violence, what the signs are, things like that. So respectfully, I would have to disagree in the sense of that we're not also providing preventive measures.
Tally, that wasn't an accusation of what you do. I'm talking about education. I'm talking about intense education. We have things in education at a bully bench. Okay, that's a nice idea, but it's not going to prevent bullying. We have just say no to drugs. We're not saying no to drugs. We need intense education within the school system and within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markle.
I
And
gotta-
go ahead. But just before you do,
Yeah, I
if you
got
don't
to
mind.
raise this.
All right, do that. So the purpose of today's session is really to address directing people to legal services, not to critique any one particular agency of what they are or are not doing. However, I will say that in this room, there are a multitude of providers that do provide excellent services for youth. And there's a huge movement afoot to invest in early childhood education, ages 0 to, or 1 to 3 years of age, and it goes on and on. But that's not the focus of today's session, so I'm sorry about that. I'd be happy to talk to you and connect you offline with other resources that can not solve your concerns, but maybe get to the heart of the things that you're concerned about. So, Judge.
Totally respect those comments. Don't disagree with them. A couple of things that may be valuable to you and others. One is, I know the Bar Association has a speakers bureau that is woefully underutilized for people who are willing to go out to schools, Rotary clubs, all sorts of organizations to talk about these issues. I know that the bench is willing to go out. I'm willing to go out and communicate about these issues. In fact, my being here is part of this community outreach initiative. Secondly, your comment about the reactivity, spot on, right? Almost by definition, the court systems are reactive because we don't get our hands on people, figuratively or literally, until they've committed a crime. Well, I get this comment from folks during jury selection. They'll come up there to the bench, totally off point, and say, Judge, you got this veterans court, you got this mental health court. How does my son get the help that you have in this tremendous program before he has to commit the serious crime to get access to these programs? This CARD program we're talking about, part of that is exactly that. I didn't have the opportunity to go into every nuance because of time constraints. That Wellness and Deferral Center that we're going to set up as part of this is going to have a training component, a public access component. Just like 211 was mentioning, I've heard too many times about people not knowing how to access the system to get help, either when they find something in their kid's drawer that should not be there, or parents, coaches, teachers who are just concerned about how do we get the message out to these kids before they enter the justice system. And we're going to have that at the Wellness and Deferral Center. We're going to have training. We're going to have public outreach. We're going to have education materials. We're going to step beyond the usual reactive system and be proactive, because you are spot on.
My question's directed at Judge Trebilcock as well. I really like the analogy or the way that you described deferring cases from the criminal justice system to the public health system. My concern there is I keep hearing that the mental health system is terribly underfunded and understaffed. And I guess we have to look at what can we do to improve that. I know my sister works in a public school system as a social services coordinator. They can't get psychologists to work with these kids. There's just there's not enough people. And I wondered if your program would address.
Sure. Yep. We recognize with the card system, if all we talked about is deferring people out of the justice system, but the system, the public health system, is not there to catch them and put them into adequate services, it's going to be a failure. So in our planning right now, we are building that bridge with the public health system right now. We're talking to Human Services. My good friend Dr. Matt Howey is here, and he's integral to this. This is not a justice program. This is a justice public health collaboration. And if we're going to change, as I addressed, it's a culture shift from let's lock up the people who need help to let's get them to the right place. And what that's going to require is a resource reallocation. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars on state prisons, let's take those dollars and put them where they're needed, which are on treatment beds, providers, psychiatrists, psychologists, treatment programs. When you put somebody in jail, you get no return on your investment. They're out of the community, they're locked up, they're not paying taxes, their family is broken, their kids are in a one-parent household, and we know what that leads to just statistically. So it's money down the gopher hole with no return. When you put the money into rehabilitation instead of state prisons and expanding county prisons, you get a return on investment. But the politicians are going to have to be willing to get on board with that and reallocate the resources. That's going to take courage, because our model in the past has been you don't get elected to positions by saying, we've got a criminal problem out there, let's give them more treatment. You get elected by pounding the desk and saying, you know, red meat, and we're going to toughen the laws and we're going to put more bad guys in jail. That's how you get elected, right? And it leads to the problem we have right now with so many people dying in York County and across the state. Culture shift. So we're going to have to reallocate resources. That doesn't mean tax increases. It means using the money we have smarter.
Could I piggyback just off of that for just 1 second as well? In terms of the absolute culture shift that we have the capability of achieving, and that is through the strength-based approach of restorative practices, having people empowered to own their problems, own their solution, and understanding that creating solutions is a skill set to be imparted at pre-K through 85 years old, and that it's something that needs to be taught, reinforced, and embraced as a community, and it's a very low-cost approach to empowering the individual to be a powerful citizen and a responsible, accountable citizen as well. So I think we are seeing that kind of shift in our community towards understanding the power that each human being has and their own born strengths when it's identified and grown and accounted and held to be accountable.
My question is for the judge as well. So,
Where you from?
Rep. Hill Evans' office. So at our office, we hear a lot of issues with people trying to get out of cycles of things. And the card system just triggered a few ideas that may take them from one cycle and put them into another that I wanted to see if there was a solution for. So one of the things that you had said about was that people had trouble with transportation getting to appointments, but that we're going to make them get a job, which makes me think, if they can't get to appointments, how are they getting to a job? I find that also, if we're using a system that makes them have all of these appointments for treatment, how do they also hold a job when they have to make all these appointments? So just kind of taking them from one cycle and putting them into another, how do we resolve those kind of issues?
We've been doing what you described for the past 20 years in the treatment courts. That will not be unique to CARD. We slowly build people up because they're very often coming from a life of complete chaos, and now we're going to slowly build them up to become a contributing member of society. So, transportation issue. Very often, they may be coming out of jail originally. They may not even have a home. So we try to look for housing that would be near their work location. That's one solution. We came up with a program that we're still operating where recognizing that York County's big and a lot of it's rural, there's a lot of bus stops, but you may not be near a bus stop. We've got a bicycle loaning service that we run out of the courthouse. You may not ride all the way into York, but you can ride your bike to the bus stop and then catch the bus in. Rabbit Transit has been a tremendous ally of some of our treatment courts. They are willing, with our Veterans Court, for example, if you call ahead, they will come pick the person up at their home and transport them to the needed appointments. So collaboration, coordination is needed. Now, they have to make a lot of appointments, and we want them to work. That is a challenge. A lot of people who are in my treatment court tend to, by their choice, gravitate towards third shift work. Nobody wants to work third shift. You know, it's the graveyard shift, right? But they work third shift, and then they either get off and sleep part-time and they make their appointments in the afternoon before they go back to work. So they have to balance all of that. And that's why I mentioned none of this is easy. None of this is, hey, let's take it easy on these guys. They're actually working harder than the folks who go on regular probation. When you go on regular probation after you commit your crime, you know, you may be told you got to go to a class or whatever, and then you're going to see your probation officer, depending on the nature of your crime or whatever, maybe once a month. Sometimes you don't even have to report at all. When you're in these types of intensive rehabilitative programs, in the treatment courts, you start out seeing the judge and the PO once a week. And we're checking up on you to make sure you're following through. So nobody's slacking off or sliding on this. We're holding them accountable. Was there another part to the question? All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nikki with Nurse Family Partnership at Family First Health. I had a question for Dawn. Can you go into more detail about the case manager login information, how that works?
It's simply a module within the information and referral database that agencies that it's a pay-for-fee service. I think it's pretty minimal. So there's an annual fee to get a login and to be a partner agency, and then a monthly seat fee per login. And you are able to then access the caller client's information, track the referrals, see where they've been referred to. And in the next iteration, which should be launching January 1st, there is also the component that with partner agencies, you will be able to email the partner agency the referral. They'll be able to follow up on it. So it's that closed loop case management. It's also something that through the Department of Health, Dr. Howie would be able to probably speak more about it on the state level. The secretary is looking at that whole case management piece and creating those closed loop referral. Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay.
Hello, I'm Jose Santiago. I'm with the YMCA. I'm the director of the New America Welcome Center. And I work with a lot of families that are definitely under the poverty line, and they struggle with housing and things of this nature. And my question is, when you deal with a family and you get them out of an apartment or a home that's not livable, what happens to that landlord? Because I know I've had some issues with some landlords that are really, really terrible housing and had to get families out. I'd like to know if there's a reporting process or anything that you guys have in place that I can reach out to when I find a landlord that's has unacceptable housing.
I would say the answer is no. We don't. I mean, if they're in the city, there's codes. The problem is a lot of times we don't want to tell clients to go to codes because if the home gets condemned, they have to leave right away, and it may be the only place they have. It is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed in York, but we're not in a position to be able to address the landlord side of it. So if you find something, let us know.
I will say that the York County Bar is looking at potentially housing court model. We have to have some conversations with our magisterial district justices to see what their view of that is, what their needs are. There are similar things in other communities, and we often borrow ideas and use them here in York. We tailor them. So Jose, I'll keep in touch with you about that. I appreciate you bringing it up. And also, I just want to emphasize for everyone that the CARD project, we've been working on this for the past 18 months. We've identified 30 different initiatives in York County that are doing similar things that are involved in our process. So this is not a solo initiative, but it's also something that we call in the philanthropic world patient capital. You are not going to see results tomorrow. You may not see results next week. The court is already taking steps administratively, internally, to make some changes that have to happen. But we are in the process now, I believe, of looking for a project coordinator who will manage this process. And then from there, you will start to hear more and start to see more results. But I would anticipate long-term gain, 5 years, 10 years, before we can really quantify the success. Those percentages, that 90% of people that the judge mentioned who are getting assisted, it's going to take us a while to make this happen. But I will say that the word is collective action. It's all of us working together to make this go. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Are there any other questions? Yes, come on up.
Hi, I'm Erin Schmidt at Family First Health, medical case manager. We had a question for the judge of how does an individual get into the various wellness treatment programs or the courts, like the family one, the juvenile, veterans court, all those. Thank you.
All right. Well, they pick up a charge. They did something wrong. They get charged. They apply. Hopefully they have an attorney. That's the preference, because they apply through the probation department, actually. The packets to apply are online. They're on the county website. But they have to attach some documents if they've had prior transgressions or they're currently on probation. They need to attach that material. So it's best to have the help of an attorney, because if you submit an incomplete packet, it gets rejected. So rather than, again, to keep using that gerbil analogy, we don't want people feeling like they're lost in the system or frustrated. Best thing is, if you're qualified, get to the public defender's office. They know exactly what to do, and they do a very good job. If you can afford to hire an attorney, hire an attorney. Use one of the lawyer referral services we used here. And then the district attorney's office is the gatekeeper to who's going to come in or not. They're charged with administering justice in the community and public safety. So if somebody puts in who did a strong arm robbery of a 7-Eleven, chances of them getting in are probably slim, especially if they have a prior bad record. But we do it on a case-by-case basis, because let me give you an example of veterans. we train veterans to be aggressive. We send them downrange and have them literally sleep with their weapons and to be ready at the snap of a finger to engage in confrontation mode on behalf of our community and our nation. So they come home, they've been on a convoy in Iraq or Afghanistan for a year, and now somebody is tailing them at 75 miles per hour on I-83. None of us like that, but the veteran's mind is attuned to threat. He may, if he has post-traumatic stress, still be thinking in terms of threat, 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 not this is just some jerk who's tailgating me. So we've had occasions where a veteran has brandished a weapon in his vehicle. Not something we want to see happening, but they're reacting the way we train them. So even though a weapon was involved, we would likely take that person into the Veterans Court because we recognize they're not brandishing a weapon because they're a dangerous thug. They've got an issue that needs to be dealt with through treatment and decompression. But the short answer is get a lawyer, apply through the public defender's office.
Hello, I'm Gabriela DeHart. I work for the York City School District as a bilingual outreach worker. And if you don't understand my accent, I can repeat it, but it's going to come out the same way. Anyways, so I really appreciate all of you, like all of your agencies and the services that you provide. In the district, we face a lot of kind of like challenges with families, especially with the language barrier. So have you ever considered kind of like you ask lawyers to be, pro bono and offers their services. Have you ever considered kind of like having a group of volunteer interpreters to be included in your agencies, in your services? Because that's a lot of, like barriers families find.
Well, I think you know that PERC works with, I think we're up to like 170 currently active volunteers, many of whom are interpreters. And by the nature of our mission, everyone that we work with is not a citizen, so chances are many of them have been born in countries maybe they don't speak English. So anyway, so we do have that. It's a prerequisite of everything we do. We don't serve anyone without language access. What I will say is that maybe what you're getting at is that, and I'll let other agencies comment, and there's been a lot of improvements, but it's not assumed to be something that should be provided automatically. If you receive federal funding under Title VI, you are obligated to provide access, for someone in a language that's their preferred language. So I'll just say that PERC certainly does it, but I'll let other people comment on how they handle that because it is a challenging issue. Does that answer your question, Gabriela? Yeah. Okay.
We've contacted Layla Martin over at CASA of Pennsylvania and are developing a volunteer program specifically for those that are English language learners in our community, that we can help them learn the skill of active listening, access to services, and computer services. We have such an in-depth training program that we're having to really, it's taking a long time, but it's definitely something that we recognized, and we want to be a win-win in sharing employment skills and access to the community with those who want to serve their community.
Before we get to the next question, I just wanted to say we have 2 Spanish-speaking intake staff at Mid-Penn, and we use Language Line for other languages. The court brings interpreters or uses Language Line.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Okay, hi. I'm Wanda Miller. I'm actually a community member, and my question goes out to whoever on the panel chooses to answer it. I'm currently going through an 18-month trauma-informed care training. It's an initiative with Michelle Hovis and York County, and also Adams County has their own initiative. And I'm just wondering, because I have also gone through a really bad landlord-tenant civil suit several years ago, which left me very traumatized from the court system and lawyers and judges. Sorry, Judge. You had nothing to do with it, so you're okay. But I'm just wondering, is there any plans to, I know this is, the trauma-informed care is going into like probation and children and youth. Is there any plan to offer it or encourage judges, lawyers, and other members of the legal system to get trauma-informed?
Welcome to YWCA Access York. That is a huge mission of ours. We pride ourselves on trauma-informed care. Every person in our staff has to be trained in trauma-informed care before they can work on their own. We do meet with judges, with attorneys. We do provide trainings. Just to be able to volunteer with us and to be able to speak to a client, you have to go through a 72-hour training. So that is something we very much pride ourselves on, and we are trying to expand it throughout the community. Domestic violence is obviously very traumatic, but in any aspect, a lot of people don't realize how much trauma affects you. So that's something we are trying to provide more of an outreach of. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know.
And just so you know, Access actually came about a year or so ago and did trauma-informed care for the staff at Mid-Penn. And we do see it in some of our other options. But if you're in an agency that doesn't have the informed care, these guys can come in and do it. They did it for us.
Sorry. I know. I'm like, I feel like I have a genetic defect or something. I have to keep bringing this up. It's a mixed bag with the judges. I would say that all of our judges who do the treatment courts are well-informed and trained on trauma-informed care. But it's not universal, but it's moving it in the right direction. We have, just like lawyers have continuing legal education, there's continuing judicial education that is being provided more in this area. To give an example, in our heroin opioid wellness court, as I became better informed and educated on this point, we used to do, and we still do, a screening of everybody coming into the court for trauma, because if we don't address that underlying trauma, they're not going to get better and they're not going to stop using drugs. And then we had a blinding flash of the obvious that when people first come in, because trauma is so personal, they're not going to automatically disclose to people they don't know and trust. And so we had a lot of people saying, no trauma, no trauma, no trauma. And then we realized, let's screen them again after about 3 or 4 months, once they know who we are, once there's a level of trust built up, once there's a human rapport back and forth. And the results came back completely different with the same person. All this prior sexual trauma came out, emotional abuse by parents when they were children, and it really made us better judges, probation officers, and attorneys in handling their cases. So we're moving in the right direction. We're not completely there yet.
We have time for one more question, and while our questioner is coming up to the microphone, please take a moment to fill out your evaluations. If we were not able to address your question, put your question on the evaluation form, leave it on this table back here, and we will be sure to share the results with you, but also to connect you with answers to the questions you may have that we have not been able to address today.
So this question started out being for the Self-Help Center, but it might apply to a number of you. What is your experience with illiteracy and illiterate clients? Do you run into it frequently? How do you assist them if you're not allowed to read forms? And then more broadly, is illiteracy a hurdle that people still need to get over?
That is a struggle every day in our office. That's why we use like the colors and simplification of the definitions on certain things that they come in. We do give them our resources, of course, but that's something that we struggle every day with. When they come in and, you know, they say, I can't fill out this form because I can't read it, and it's something that we can't help, unfortunately. So the hope is giving them their other resources, someone can, but that's a struggle every day that I don't know if that's going to be fixed.
Carol Hill Evans's office is an amazing resource for those that are struggling with literacy. That is absolutely one of their mandates, that anybody who needs help filling out a form or reading through a form, they are there to help. So for those that need that, her office is a great resource.
Sorry, David. I was just going to comment that we do run into people both in the prison and in the community who suffer or struggle with illiteracy, and our response to it is to just read applications. So we just turn everything that we hand them in whatever language is their preferred language. We just orally read everything and make sure that they understand it. So I am done.
So, in the interest of time, it is now 10:58. So I thank all of you for coming to our presentation today. Please give our presenters another round of applause. Again, I hope that you found this day to be valuable to you. We will continue this conversation. You will receive an email. Those of you who have provided Janelle with your email with the links to the slides, the videos from today. Again, and if you have questions, please complete your evaluations. Janelle will collect them. And I thank you all for coming.